You brought up our esteemed governor, Gavin Newsom, so I think this is a good segue into our next topic. Did you think that the way to solve homelessness in San Francisco was to have the dictator from China, Xi Jinping, come over? Was that anybody's
You
guess?
know, you know what I find so insulting about that whole episode is he was so smug and he didn't even hide it. He said, "Yeah, of course we did. We cleaned up the city because we had all these world leaders coming and a Chinese dictator." He was very smug about it. And when
Like
it shows you is like what?
he said it's like cleaning your house when guests come over.
Yeah.
I
And
personally don't have homeless encampments in my yard, but
I don't know what they did with them. I don't know if they just shoved them into some residential areas for temporarily. I don't know that there was a permanent, remedy for it. But it shows you that if they want to do it, they can do it. It's not an issue of money. It's not an issue of court cases or laws in the way. It's a lack of will. So when they have the will to do it, they do it. And so, why is the Chinese dictator more important, more special than the average California person who's working hard, paying taxes, and trying to raise a family? Why does the Chinese dictator get more special treatment than we do in our own freaking state? So I find it so insulting that he'll go out of his way for foreign dictators, but he wouldn't give us the same courtesy. Same thing with the 10 freeway shutdown. It showed you that if they want to do something, want to fix a highway or build a lane, they can do it. They don't want to. It doesn't fit their agenda and their narrative, and so that's really what it exposes. And that's why, as a Republican, I don't sign on to any of these homeless bills and bonds and BS because that's not the issue. The issue isn't money or bond. It's we don't have people in power that actually want to fix the problem.
yeah.
Even more insulting was they found out this was all done within San Francisco's budget, so they had the money to do this. It wasn't like they needed a special block grant from the federal government. They could have just done this. They could have just cleaned up the city and figured this out with the homeless. So I think and it's just kind of insulting, and it shows you how smug they are and how I guess untouchable they feel, California Democrats, because they're like, yeah, whatever. We welcome Xi Jinping with open arms. We cleaned up the streets. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to vote us out in San Francisco? Like, that doesn't change anything.
Yeah, until they are actually beat up at the ballot box, till they start losing some seats, they're not going to. It's going to get worse. It will not get better. It's just the only thing they understand is raw power at the ballot box. It's the only thing that's going to change things. So people, I even tell Democrats, I'm like, even if you're not a Republican, vote Republican just to send a message and get some balance in the legislature. And I would be telling you the same thing if we had a supermajority Republican legislature. I do not think supermajorities are healthy. They're not. You should not have a supermajority anything because, like I said, it allows the extremes to basically run the show, and you don't get any kind of moderation or uh, you don't moderate any of the viewpoints when it's a supermajority.
I have a theory, and you can tell me if I'm completely off base or not. Ironically, we are kind of saved by the far left policies because Gavin Newsom wants to run for president so badly that he will shut down far left policies and veto those bills because of that. Now, I'm scared the next governor, whether it's Rob Bonta or the lieutenant governor, who I can never pronounce her name, because they don't have higher aspirations, will be farther left and be more bold to pass these crazy far left policies. Is that a crazy theory that we're at
No,
least
it's a huge concern. I have the same concern. I say right now, thank God Newsom's running for president because it's the only thing that's moderating, our policies in California. He's the adult in the room right now. He's the only one that's vetoing crazy bills. Not all of them, but some of them. And that's the best we have right now. If we get one of these other people up there who are much more progressive and are not restrained, they'll sign all this stuff that's going to bankrupt the state and just drive us down the hole deeper. I'm very, very worried about that. And I don't see any prominent Republicans emerging that can be viable governor candidates. I mean, we really need just the way California is. It's so big. You need someone with huge name ID, almost celebrity status, that could win. I mean, the last one was Arnold, right? We need someone at that level that can step up and run. I don't know who that is. Maybe they'll emerge, but we just can't hand this over to the Democrats. When Newsom leaves, and think about it too. Jerry Brown was a kind of moderate too on fiscal stuff. So we've had two somewhat moderate governors in a row. We haven't felt the full effect of a Democrat supermajority and a progressive governor. That is going to be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I just fear the day there's going to be a governor who's in Sacramento who has no qualms about signing off on every Scott Wiener bill and every Alex Lee bill and every Buffy Wicks bill. And like some of those bills you look at are just like you roll your eyes and go, okay, where are we getting the money for? Why is this important? It's either one of those two things. One, where are we getting the money from? Raising taxes. Or two, there's social issues that most of the time we kind of go, why is this important? Why does this have to be made law? So yeah,
or they're unconstitutional, and then you got to have a lot of resources to go to court and challenge it and get it struck down, which the Democrats don't care. They'll pass it again even after it's struck down and just tie it up for years.
Well, my fear as a gun owner is that if someone like Rob Bonta gets in, he's just going to tear apart the Second Amendment here in California. He won't care. He'll have the ability and the backing of the governor's office to just absolutely shred any Second Amendment rights in this state. And as good as like the firearms policy coalition is, California Gun Owners Association, as good as they are, they won't be able to match the power of the governor's office, who has unlimited resources to fight these out in court forever. So that's one thing I'm scared of. Shifting now, speaking of the grace of God, I want to go back to the issue with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. I actually had to try and remember what their name was before I hopped on here, because I was like, the Sisters of what were they? Perpetual something or other. I just like to say, first off, as a Catholic myself, I was very appreciative of you standing up for me as a Californian in the legislature against the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. So I thought that was great to see that. What was going through your head when they invited these sisters there?
Honestly, I was disgusted, because we are supposed to be a institution that stands for something, some sort of decency and higher level of intellect and discussion. I mean, we represent the people. We're the people's house, and this is where we do our business and we decide policy and we govern. It's a big deal. And to basically cheapen it and recognize a group that basically exists for the sole purpose of mocking a faith, mocking Catholics, is so disgusting and beneath what we stand for. So, I did my own little silent protest. I think you saw it. I just stood up and I had a little sign. It said, "Religious bigotry is bigotry." And there was a lot of blowback for that. And people were upset, and people in my party were upset why I did that and why I upset the Democrats, because, they try to turn it into an anti-LGBT thing. I said, there were a lot of other LGBT people being recognized that day that were worthy of recognition. You had, people who are in law enforcement and people involved in their community, but these drag queen nuns who, okay, maybe they do an hour of community service a week and spend the rest of their time, making fun of Catholics, is not worthy of being recognized. And so But why do they do it? They do it to provoke us, right? I mean, they want a reaction from us, and they do it because they can, and they want to rub it in our face. And I just don't think we should participate in that. And you know what I did in response? Because all the media narrative was that the Republicans walked out on the Pride ceremony. That's how they spun it. So I said, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we recognize a conservative gay person and see how they react? And we did that. I
Mhm.
invited Rick Grenell up, the first gay cabinet member, Ambassador Rick Grenell, who was appointed by President Trump. We gave him an award, and guess what? The Democrats stood up and walked out during
Wow.
his award. And
Oh,
so, yeah. So, it's like two can play that game, and we got some good press out of that. But even that, my party's like, why are you doing this? Leave it alone. Don't provoke them. I go, no, we have to make a point. This is not, see, this is what they do. They paint Republicans as bigots and homophobes, and we just sit by and we like say, oh no, we're not. What you have to do is flip the script and use their playbook against them. And so, okay, let's have our own ceremony and see how they react. And when they get up and walk out, you call them homophobes. And that's what we did. It was pretty effective, actually. Um, but I think the best defense is offense, and I wish people would embrace that a bit more.
Yeah, because I think it got people to notice the issue, and I think it got
Mm-hmm.
people to pay attention to it and discuss it. Um, Otherwise, and I think that's part of the problem in California is there's so many people in California who feel like they just don't have a voice. I feel like that there's so many, just people who want to go to work, who want to make a good living, afford a home, put their kids through a good school. They're not into all this crazy progressive social issues. They're not into the climate change. They want to pay $3 for a gallon of gas again, and their voices are just they're not being heard anywhere. And there's gotta be millions more of the unheard in California than there is of these these showboat far left Democrats who make it all about social issues and all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think politicians like yourself need to, and you've done it. And I think there needs to be more speaking up on their behalf and letting people like, hey, someone's standing up on my behalf. So, like I said, as a Catholic, when I saw you do that, I said, hey, someone's standing up on my behalf in the legislature. I felt represented. And how many
Mm-hmm.
thousands of Catholics or millions of Catholics here in California said, wow, he's standing up for me and protecting me
Yeah.
and
And how
my
many
voice.
Hispanics are Catholic? I mean, one of the biggest voting bloc in the state of California are Hispanics.
Yeah.
They're predominantly Catholic. So when they go vote, they should know when you go see the D next to somebody's name, they don't respect you or your family or your religion. In fact, that
Mm-hmm.
D stands for Diablo. Don't vote for them.
Yeah.
So the problem today is people's attention spans are so small that you really have to make the election very simple, and it's got to be a binary issue. It's
Mm-hmm.
Democrats are against parental rights, Republicans are for parental rights. So when you go vote, that's the only thing you need to know, and you can make that decision accordingly. Because very few people take the time to learn about each person they're voting for, what their record is, and then deciphering what's true, what's not true, and all this stuff. A lot of people just vote based on party. And what
Yeah.
they think in their head is that Republicans are racist and homophobes and hate women, and Democrats love them. But that's not
Mm-hmm.
true. I mean, obviously, look at the policy, but that's what people feel. So until there's a alternative message and narrative that resonates, we're going to continue to have the same results we do. Until people feel a sort of disgust and resistance to Democrats, they're not going to vote for us. I don't think people vote for anything anymore. I think they vote against things. I just
Yeah.
do. It's just the way I
yeah.
feel. I don't think anyone voted for Biden. I think they voted in their mind against Trump.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So
Mhm.
same thing. They're not voting for these loser Democrats that are getting sent up there. They're just voting against the Republicans.
Right. It's tribalism has really hurt our country because people just it's my tribe versus your tribe, and I don't care who we send out there, how bad they are. I want someone to bring home a win for our tribe, and that's the sad thing, is that people just don't care. They don't look at their own party and give it criticism. I know Camille and I, we constantly critique the California Republican Party, and we get some backlash for it, but I think being honest is the best way to start fixing and moving forward, because otherwise, how's anything gonna change if you just keep the status quo?
Right. And George Washington warned us about political parties. He was very
Right.
concerned about the effects they would have on the republic, and we've seen that now. And I don't think the solution is to have a third party. I don't know what the solution is, because then you get a plurality. But yeah, people are they defer way too much to the party that they belong to, and just give them a free pass every time.
Yeah.
I wish there was just no letter next to their name, and everyone actually had to go and research the candidate and then be like,
You know, it's interesting you say that, because when you look at local races, city council and supervisor and sheriff and DA, there is no letter next to their name, and we tend to get better candidates
but
at
so
the
many
local
of them are
level.
like outspoken about, like they want to make sure everyone knows who they are, what party they are, even though they're supposed to be.
Yeah, but if you notice, we get more Republicans elected at the local level
Mm-hmm.
because people vote for the person because there's no party next to their name. So I'm not going to say anything today, but that is an interesting observation that you've made.
Yeah.
Okay.
And local makes all the difference.